Well, I think it goes back to the fact that every company is a reflection of its owner. Some of my people, when we have a problem, they look at me and they go, is it my fault? Well, of course it's your fault, but that doesn't matter. Let's just find a way to go forward. So it's a lot of your personal taste about how you want your life to be. And the unique thing about your concept, once again, we're just sitting here today. There's only ever going to be one original Mexican seafood restaurant in Dallas. There aren't going to be any more. So you have to find that unique aspect of your concept that you can weave into your culture so you can keep it special.
This episode made possible by Restaurant Systems Pro. With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guest, consultant, advisor, coach, and president of Surrender, Matthew Mabel. My man, welcome back on the show. Are you feeling unstoppable today?
Eric, I'm feeling unstoppable. Welcome to Texas. Happy to be back.
Yeah, man. I'm psyched to have you here. You're episode 518. That was 7 or 8 years ago.
Wow.
Crazy,
Nothing's
man.
happened since then, so we have nothing to talk about.
A lot has happened. And, the last time, it's cool when I talk to people and they say they're on a path. And then when I follow up and I find out that their path, they're still on the path.
Nice.
They're practicing what they preach. They have a vision. They have a strategy. They're executing it. So you came back up on my radar serendipitously. Help me out here. What
Let's
am I trying
spell
to
that.
say?
Serendipitously.
Serendipitously.
Spell it.
No, don't ask me to spell anything. I'd be disappointed. So I was hosting a live event. I'm doing these mentoring sessions.
Right.
I was talking to Kyle Gordon, the CEO of Dilla's Quesadillas.
I know Kyle Gordon.
Kyle's the man. Really impressed by that dude and what he's doing with Dilla's. And he's leading a QSR mentoring session.
Nice.
Where he's talking to other people who are trying to achieve what he's achieved. And he said, hey, here's something that you guys should check out. And he sent the PDF of your scaling. The
game of restaurant growth.
The game
That's
of
what we've been
restaurant
playing our
growth.
whole lives.
Yeah. And I was like, Matthew Mabel, I know this guy. And I was looking at it and I was reading it and I was like, wow, like honestly, like you reinforce a lot of some of the things that I've picked up on in my nearly 1,200 episodes. We'll get into that. But I was coming out here to Dallas and I was like, I have to reconnect with Matt to talk about this thing that I stumbled upon and I can't wait to get into it. But before we do, let's get that motivational, inspirational ball rolling with a success quote or mantra. What do you got for us?
I'm thinking about always be yourself. I tell that to my daughter since she was little, and I tell that to everybody I meet. Be you. Don't be the guy across the street. Find your own way.
Easier said than done.
Well, we'll talk about that today. I've got a few tips on that.
I think it takes time to find yourself.
Absolutely.
You don't know until at least I feel like your late 20s, early.
Could be.
That self-awareness, it takes time.
Right.
So like you said, it'll come out in today's conversation. So today I want to kind of cover, these different points of evolution in scaling. So before we get into it real quick, big picture, what are these stops along the way?
All my life we're dealing with restaurant growth, unit growth, and decades of looking at different companies I owned, companies I advised. I kind of got a chance to distill it down to 3 phases. And this is what I did that Kyle told you about. It's a game, so we made it into a board game. And you've seen the graphic, and we'll talk about the graphic a little bit more today. 3 different phases. One is the adrenaline espresso years, which is how you get started. The second is chill out and reflect. And the third is should I stay or should I go? So each one of these stages has things that are unique to it that are total pivots from the prior stage.
Okay. So 1 to 3 units, the adrenaline espresso years.
Right.
4 to 9 units, the chill and reflect
Chill
years.
out and reflect.
10 to 20 units, what would you call that one?
Should I stay or should I go? With apologies to the Clash, or maybe just a tribute to the Clash.
And what would 20 plus be?
Well, with 20 plus, you've kind of dug in, and we can talk about that today. But once you get past that 20 threshold and you've decided how your life is going to be, then you're locked into a whole other world.
And was that retire in place?
No, retire in place is an option in the should I stay or should I go years.
Okay.
And that's something else I want to talk to you about today.
That will come out as we go.
That's really important right now.
As we go down this path.
As we go down the board, yeah.
And the thing that I noticed that really reinforced, if I can offer some context, what I've learned as I'm growing my platform and trying to figure out, okay, like how do I grow beyond this podcast? I think who I am, what I'm trying to become is a promoter of the tools, services, and individuals that have been referred to me organically using word of mouth. And how do I create community around these people? And how do I be the guy who knows a guy, the connector,
the guy who knows the guy.
Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to build. And I've realized, and I think something that we talked about the last time I had you on the show is that you said that, there's a formula that you picked up on. And when I heard that, I was like, the more I learned, the more I realized there's 1,000,001 different ways. Like, what is this formula? And I think you're right. Big picture that we're going to talk about today, right? Big picture, some like commonalities. But what I realized is that there's points of evolution, and I identified that the 4 segments of my community where I'm trying to find out where people are: 1 to 3, 4 to 9, 10 to 20, and 20 plus.
We're doing the same work on the opposite sides of the country.
I think it's just patterns of like, these are the places where we have, and I call it shifting gears.
Right.
Like, like there's points of evolution. You can't get to the next point until you're constantly evolving, constantly and changing.
Right. And the thing is, every time you leave one of those plateaus and you go to the next one, you have to totally reinvent yourself or your company.
Yeah. And
people say, well, the hardest thing to do is to go from 1 restaurant to 2 restaurants. Well, maybe there's a lot of challenging things to do as you grow and you continue to go to 5, 10, 15, 20 units.
Yeah.
Things change so much.
When I see other people who are doing work that reinforces the patterns I'm seeing, it just kind of makes me, it makes you feel like, okay, well, I'm on the right path. Like, I've actually learned something in 1,200 episodes.
I'm sure you've learned more than something. And it's a little easier for me to see because one day I'll be with a client with 20 restaurants. The next day I'll be in a client with 3 restaurants.
Yeah.
And we can see, what they can learn from each other and how that evolution has taken place.
Awesome. So let's get into it.
Great.
1 to 3 adrenaline espresso years. Let's talk about this phase of growth.
So I have a client who today he has a $20 million company with 7 restaurants. And he tells a story that I repeat so many times that I probably ought to send him a check every time I tell it, of his first night at his first restaurant. I'm guessing we're 20, 25 years ago, where he was the host, the server, and the cook. And it was raining, and he called his wife, and he said, honey, I don't think this is going to work. Right. And here we are 25 years later. He's built an incredible company that anybody would be proud to own. And I've had a small part in that.
Yeah.
So and that's emblematic of the fact that when you start, you have to have that adrenaline. You have to have that double espresso before you go in at night to make it through. You have to touch everything just to get it off the ground. And that is the espresso adrenaline years. And we've dropped it. I'm looking at my notes here on my graphic.
Feel free to hold it up in front of the camera if you want.
That's great. There's a lot of different versions of this. This is the mid-sized version. We have a giant version.
I got some giant ones in my.
Right. By the way, we're going to tell you how to get the giant version to put on your office wall or your bathroom wall or wherever you want to put it. So we've broken that down into 4 components of the adrenaline espresso years. Number 1 is branding is your business. People sit around and they think, what am I going to name my restaurant? I got to come up with a good name. It's got to represent me. It's got to be, hopefully, by the way, it's got to be something that I can own, that there are 40 of them around the country. But really what they don't know is they're starting to build a brand. And the sooner you know you're starting to build a brand and that every front-facing step you take either advances that brand or holds it back, the better off you are. Yeah. So that's a super important thing to realize at the very beginning. The decisions you're making to the guest are really branding decisions.
When you say you're developing the brand, what in your mind does that entail?
So it's a brand is how people think of you when you're not there, right? So they know your name, right? But what do they associate with that? We're sitting in a restaurant right now in Dallas called La Calle Doce. It's the second of 3 La Calle Doces. The first one opened in 1981. It was the original Mexican seafood restaurant in Dallas. The original Mexican seafood restaurant in Dallas.
That's great.
Are you kidding me? Yeah, it was 1981. We didn't have it.
Yeah.
So, and it's called La Calle Doce, which for you Duolingo fans is 12th Street. Well, we're not on 12th Street. The original one's on 12th Street in Oak Cliff. And now in Dallas, La Calle Doce means Mexican seafood. It doesn't mean 12th Street.
Yeah.
So it means decades and decades of original, authentic Mexican seafood for Hispanic diners and for Anglo diners. Now, Was that decision made at that day in 1981? Not really. I mean, they named the restaurant after the street.
Yeah.
But look at what's been added to it over decades and decades. And keeping that in mind, the sooner rather than later, is really going to help you.
Yeah. I like to say that behind every great restaurant is a great person and or people.
Right.
Right. And that will only get you so far. You really have to, at the end of the day, distill what are these people, like what, so that a lot of times your restaurant is an extension of who you are. Right. But when you're not there, how does that extension stay present?
Exactly.
So like you got to get what you are, your beliefs, your values, your vision, your essence, your tone, these things that come out naturally because you're there every day. How do you commit that to writing? So it's, if you're not there, you know who we are and what we're about.
Right. And we in the industry, we use that word concept. That I hate that word because the guest is not, nobody ever said, hey, honey, what concept do you want to go to tonight? Right? It's our word. But sometimes that leaks out into media, into social media, into our conversations with our guests. And really what they're saying is, what brand are we going to eat with
Right.
tonight?
Well, I think there was also a period, going back 10 to 20, 30 years ago where like the world of concepts, like people were just like the Rainforest Cafe, like there are people like creating these experiences, creating concepts.
We're going to come back to experience because that's super important. Right
it
now.
works sometimes,
Bookmark
right?
that.
Yeah.
Just bookmark the word experience.
Yeah. But I'm thinking of Lane's Chicken Fingers because I just recently interviewed them. And Lane started in 1994 in College Station, Texas by Matt Lane.
Right.
And I think he might have, I don't know if it was started by him, but he was basically he's owned it the longest, right? So he is the brand, right? And then the Reed brothers and Matt O'Reilly came and said, we want the right to take your brand and to franchise it and scale it. So they got to 6 or 7 locations, and then they hired outside help, and the outside help says, you got to distill what is Lane's.
Well, good, because that's the next thing on my list.
Yeah, and they went back to Matt Lane and they said, "Who is Matt Lane?" Because that's really what he built this. We're just scaling it.
Right.
So that's just another example.
Right. So the next thing on the Adrenaline Espresso years is a two-pronged culture. Two-pronged because it's to enroll the people that work in your restaurants and the people that eat in your restaurants. And we have so much talk about culture today in a healthy way. You establish it from the beginning. My recommendation as you're starting a brand is define your culture quickly and find a way to define it uniquely. That is, once again, always be yourself. Find a way to define it uniquely because, a lot of culture statements at restaurants, they kind of look the same, right? My joke is, oh, that's the poster in the drink station, right? And what I encourage the people I work with to do is to find extremely unique ways to define their culture. So that when you're there, you're there. When you work there, you're not rolling your eyes going, oh, this is another company that says this are our values and they're all like all the rest. So it's very important early in your evolution to have a two-pronged culture that's highly defined and unique.
When going through this exercise of trying to find our uniqueness, what kind of probing questions are you asking? How do you bring this out of people?
Well, I think it goes back to the fact that every company is a reflection of its owner. Some of my people, when we have a problem, they look at me and they go, is it my fault? Well, of course it's your fault, but that doesn't matter. Let's just find a way to go forward. So it's a lot of your personal taste about how you want your life to be and the unique thing about your concept. Once again, we're just sitting here today. There's only ever going to be one original Mexican seafood restaurant in Dallas. There aren't going to be any more. So you have to find that unique aspect of your concept that you can weave into your culture so you can keep it special.
So it's not just the who, what, it's everything. Who, what, why, how. Absolutely. It's all those things. Like, what is it that we do that's different?
Right. Because when you there's great value statements, core value statements out there that make you want to stand up and salute and feel good. I want to be part of it. But at some point they start to become kind of samey. Mm-hmm. And just like we don't want our restaurants to be identical to the competition, we don't want our culture to be identical to the competition because we want to enroll the employees that we want and we want to enroll the guests that we want. And it's very hard to differentiate, but the energy and the effort you put in differentiation pays off because once you're differentiated, nobody can touch you.
Yeah. So if we're going like a layer deeper, if we're looking at who, right? It's, what is that? Like story.
Storytelling is important. No question.
Things about the people behind it that are anything that's unique,
Right.
only you or very few people can say. So that's who. The what is, maybe it's the process and how you execute whatever you're doing that is special. Maybe it's a 48-hour proofing process
Right.
or something like that.
Right.
Like whatever you're willing to do to make your product different. Or maybe it's the sourcing of your product, local, whatever that is. I mean, that's kind of played out, but not to say you shouldn't do it.
It's still, I think there's still some appeal to that.
Yeah.
In the local sourcing.
Because it's the right thing to do.
Farm to table is kind of played out, where local sourcing is, people are more interested in that right now, I think, than farm to table.
Why is big today. At Simon Sinek, start with why. What does that mean?
Right. Well, I have a client. They've got over 20 restaurants, and we're starting to retell the story of the founding. It's a husband and wife that founded these restaurants. They opened one restaurant. Now they're 20 plus, and we've gotten away from telling their story. And we've been talking more about the food and the experience. And now we've decided to come back to telling their story, because nobody asked what concept do you want to eat at tonight. Also, nobody ever asked what company do you want to eat at tonight. People want to relate to other people. So I think the storytelling is extremely powerful, and it's of great interest right now.
Yeah.
That's why, even down to your social media, put some people in your posts, folks. Okay, your food's beautiful, but everybody's food is beautiful. Put some people in the post, whether they're aspirational guests, whether they're people that work in your restaurants, whether they're the owners who tell the story. We relate to people in a totally different way than we relate to food.
It's what we evolved to coexist with relationships. We love people. We also hate people. It's the thing that we love and we hate the most in life, right? People. We need it. And one more thing I want to tag on to this idea of why. Are you familiar with Joe Pine's work, The Experience Economy?
Not in a whole lot of depth.
Like, had him on the show.
Nice.
Getting him back on the show. So he wrote the book, The Experience Economy.
Right.
It's a fantastic book. And his next book is going to be coming out in the fall, called The Transformation Economy. Mm-hmm. And the transformation economy is all about taking your end user, your guest, and literally making them either happier, healthier, or wealthier. And when you think about that, how does the restaurant industry connect to that? What goes through your mind?
Well, the connection is really the whole binding of the whole business, whatever kind of connection is. Now, our connection to our guests is changing, and I want to talk about that later, but it's all experiential. And I think that we have to always have that in mind, that we're building relationships every day. And you're going to, as you hear this pattern emerge, you're going to hear some new things as we go down the path that we're going down, Eric.
Yeah. And to add on to what you're saying, a transformation is experiences tied together over time.
Right.
When you're transforming somebody, you're working with them, like you're giving them when you go to the gym, it's an experience. But when you going to the gym one time isn't going to cause a transformation. Right. It's that new form of life, that new habit, and it's being a part of this person's transformation or evolution, whether it be sourcing locally or buying from local farms or something like this, or maybe eating healthier to be a healthier version of yourself. Mm-hmm. So these are just examples of how you can tie your whys to things to create that uniqueness around.
Nice.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think that, we have seen, for years we had healthy items on our menu just so we feel good. And then, in the last 7 to 10 years, people started to buy them. And now that's even more the case with the protein craze.
People are eating it and they're saying, shit, I feel better.
It's just off the charts. The protein craze right now is off the charts.
Well,
I'm not a doctor. I can't tell you if that's going to be gone in 5 years. Remember when pasta was off the charts as healthy food? I don't know. But people are wanting to connect, be better. The food is connected to the way you feel. 100%. It's just one big connection.
We're learning so much. Like, I'm somebody who was recently diagnosed pre-diabetic.
Oh, wow.
So I'm now eating basically vegetables and protein. So I'm eating a ton of meat now because it's what I need in order to not get on medication. And I refuse to get on medication. So I think a lot of people are starting to realize that food is the answer. It's a part of the transformation of society.
So one of my clients, we just opened a upscale sports bar with chef crafted food, and the protein bowl is the number one seller on the menu, and we're sitting there going, what happened here?
Yeah, people, like, the information is spreading.
Right. I have another client that put a protein bowl on his, he has a beer and burger concept in West Texas, and he says there is one on every check. Every check is a protein bowl.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So we're still 1 to 3 right now. We covered proof of concept, 2-pronged culture, people who work for you, and people who eat with you. Did we really talk about the difference between people who work for you and people who eat?
It's getting to be less and less different, especially after we had to kind of re-motivate our workforce in the last few years. The tactics we use to enroll the people that work with us and the people that eat with us, they're not that different anymore.
Yeah.
What up, unstoppable restaurant owners and operators? We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that Restaurant Unstoppable and Restaurant Systems Pro, we're taking our relationship to the next level. Beginning in July of 2024, Fred Langley, CEO of Restaurant Systems Pro, is making himself available once a week in Restaurant Unstoppable Network to answer all of your restaurant systems questions, whether it's the profit margins. He will look at your P&L. Bring your P&L. He will take a look at that. He will dissect it. He will help you find your profit, whether that be through budgeting, inventory management, costing recipe cards, labor, checklists, you name it. He is a master on restaurant systems, and he's making himself available to you. Fred Langley and Restaurant Systems Pro started as a consulting firm, and for over 16 years, they've been helping their clients increase their profit by 10% or more. What are you waiting for? Click the link below to join our Facebook group, Restaurant Unstoppable Network.
What else do we need to address?
So I think the next piece of the Adrenaline Espresso years is it's intentional strategy. Okay, you've got one going, it's going well, it's exciting. What do you do next? Intentional strategy is really understanding what to do next in terms of your second or third unit and your infrastructure. A random strategy is you get a real estate broker, they find you a location, they drive you over there, you stick your finger in the air and feel the wind go by, and you go, this is a place for me. Let's open a second unit here. Intentional strategy is knowing what you believe your site criteria are and why. So that you can say, this deal works for me or not because I'm going to grow this concept with these criteria for my site. I'm going to grow my organization one person at a time to handle more units and more volume, one step at a time. So now you need strategy. And one of the things that I do is create strategy with my clients that's lined out, line by line. Here's what we do, step 1, step 2, step 3 in every category of your business. If you don't stop and do this, then you're just random. You're the guy that gets in the Ford Explorer that your real estate broker has and sees one site and goes yes or no, as opposed to having a strategic approach. So it's very important during this first phase to start creating that strategy so that you can get out of that phase and into the next phase. People miss that a lot.
Can you give me some examples in terms of intentional decision making, like filters that you, like standard filters, in terms of different things you need to consider when trying to be intentional? Like what are the questions?
So I think that a part of strategy we've already talked about, because branding and culture are strategy.
Yeah.
But in terms of building your organization, you have a limited amount of funds. You've got to figure out where to spend it first as you create more sophisticated positions in your company. As you start to create a multi-unit team, you've got to know 1, 2, and 3. And that really is related to who you are. Once again, always be yourself. I just did strategy for a guy here in Dallas who has 3 very cool restaurants. And we sat down together and did strategy because he is exactly that position. He's a great marketer. He's fantastic at that. So we wanted to create a organization as he grows where he can be freed up to do that because he's great at it, but he's not getting the call at 8 o'clock in the morning saying the air conditioner's broken. And once again, it's different for everybody. I'm not a cookie cutter person. I'm a create your organization around yourself.
Yeah, when you said you had the formula, I was like, oh, it is different. But I hear what you're saying now.
I see the connections. I see the themes.
Yeah. I hear it, like big picture formula for sure. But the truth is, we're all different. We all have different strengths and weaknesses.
Right.
We all want different things. We're different people with different destinations.
No question.
In different markets.
Right, and random is a very rocky road.
Yeah.
Where strategic, it's not the smoothest road in the world, but it's much more
You
intentional.
have a plan. You're saying, okay, I want to be here in 5 years.
Right.
What can I do in the next year to be in that direction? What can I do in the next quarter to be in that direction? What can I do the next month to be in that direction? That's one of the reasons why I love EOS so much, is because it forces you to work your strategy and to find out, like, why are we on this path? Yes or no? Why or why not? What can we change? So, like, a big part of this, I feel like, is definitely people, of like knowing who you are and knowing who you need to surround yourself with.
Right. And I have a group that I just started working with, very successful group. And I talked to their multi-unit operator, and really he is making sure the system runs, but he doesn't have an operational plan. And we're going to create an operational plan like I do with all my clients, annual, quarterly, so we know what we're trying to achieve. Otherwise, all you're doing is running shifts.
Yeah.
And we got to get away from running shifts once we learn how to run shifts and start building an organization.
Yes. Okay, so 1 to 3, we've covered proof of concept, 2-prong approach to culture, people who you work with, and the people who eat your food, intentional strategy, we covered, what to do between 1 and 2, site criteria, things like this, strategy, anything else in terms of.
So I think the last piece of 1 to 3 units is at 3, maybe even at 2, you start to let go a little. It can't be dependent on you, because otherwise it's a trap. If you want to keep going, your restaurants have to start operating without being dependent on you. And that is an entirely new world.
What are the things you have to do to be able to let go?
You have to be able to choose people that are responsible, that you can trust, that love what you're doing, not people that want to come in and correct you because they think you're foolish. And you've got to start respecting that you need these people to grow your business. And it's not a badge of honor to be in demand with your phone blowing up from 8 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night.
Right. At this point, you're more self-aware. You know what 20% of the business you should serve, the things you're uniquely qualified to do, and then hand out the rest, the 80% of things that other people are better at.
Right.
Who you trust, who are qualified, who get it, want it, and have the capacity to do it.
Yeah. And, we hear the trope about how hard the restaurant industry is. And I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying that's not what you're aiming for. You're not aiming for the most difficult life possible. You're aiming for enrolling other people, just like you said, connections, once again, people you trust, who can start doing things that you started doing, like the guy that the first night he was the cook, he was the host, he was the waiter. He certainly wasn't going to be that in unit number 3. And begin to enroll these people and learn how to bring them in to make your life easier. And one of the things that I recommend is it can be good for these people to have some chain experience, but as an independent restaurateur, and I'm in the independent restaurant world, they must always have independent experience. Don't be their first independent restaurant. It's too risky. Let someone else figure that out. And once you know they love the independent restaurant world, where you have to do a lot of things, not much is done for you, but you get a tremendous experience of being able to collaborate with an owner where you can change something on a dime. Those are your people.
Got it. So we've covered 1 to 3. What happens beyond 3?
So
this is different.
The second phase, so if you've been amped up on those double espressos for a few years and you realize that's probably not a healthy life permanently, and stage 2 is chill out and relax. Well, it's not to stay at the pool and read a book, but now all of a sudden you're turning things over to other people.
Yeah. Before we move on to chill out and relax, can we maybe think about amending stage 1, the adrenaline espresso in youth years? Where you can work 90, 100 hours
That's
a week.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's harder. It gets harder as the years go by. Yeah. No question. So, thank you for that.
4 to 9, chill out and relax.
This is where you perfect your operations. And the first stop is layered operations. Now, okay, you may have general managers. They may always have reported to you. Now you have your first operations director. The operations director works with the general managers, does the one-on-ones every week, develops them professionally. That's not your thing anymore, unless it's the thing you're greatest at, and then you got to kind of reorganize the puzzle.
Yeah. And I've had a lot of conversations with people who've scaled, right? And they tend to take their time with unit 1, 2, and 3. They scale, but then they might open like 2 and 3 within like a couple of years from each other, or within a year from each other. They might go to 4 or 5, and then usually they're like, shit, we need to chill out. But if you're ahead of it and you realize, okay, we have 3 units, we can choose to chill out now while we have the bandwidth to work on the business a little bit more before trying to go even further. You need to build the house before you move in it.
Right.
And that is people at this stage, it sounds like.
Right. And when you get to the chill out and relax stage, that's when you get exposed, because you can have great success with your restaurants and you can make more money than you ever expected you could make. Let's say you might just have 2 of the 6 things you have to make restaurants go, right? You might have great marketing, great food, great locations. You might have a good mind for business. You might be a great inspirational figure. But you're not going to have all of those. And when you get past 3, you get to our next criteria, which is our 4 to 9. The pieces you don't have are going to be evident, and then you got to bring them in, or you're not going to get any further.
Yeah. So there's 4 factors that you wrote on your PDF that I read.
Right.
It's branding is your business. 2-prong.
You're back in the.
I think maybe I might have gotten my line.
Stage 2.
I was going to say.
Can I help you through stage 2?
Yeah. So stage 2
Eric,
is 4 to 9.
your game piece is going backwards
Apparently,
on the board.
I was like, wait a second. I must have missed something. But that can happen. Your game piece can go backward on the board.
True. Yeah.
That's if you get too far ahead of your skis, you have to kind of close a couple locations, right?
That's fair.
To figure out.
Yeah.
So I don't know how those notes got into that section, but sorry, please correct me.
So we talked about layered operations. The next piece is locked-in strategy. Okay. Now remember, we had intentional strategy. The best operators have intentional strategy. But it's obvious that if you have intentional strategy at 1 to 3 units, it's really not tested yet.
Okay, so layered operations, locked-in strategy. What are the other ones?
Permeating culture and amplified branding at the 4 to 9 stage.
Amplified branding.
Right. So locked-in strategy is, hey, remember that strategy we put together between units 1 and 2? And we got out there and built number 2 and number 3, and we tested it, and we learned from it, and we adjusted it, because we always reserve the right to update our methodology when things change. Now we know exactly how we're going to go forward. We've got it.
Yeah. So 1, 2, and 3, you're really you're using those things to really dial it in. And then 4 to 10 is, okay, now we're building layers on this.
Right. And a wise man said to me, choose number 1 carefully, because if you mess that up, there's going to be a number 2.
Yeah.
But once you get past that threshold, 2 and 3 are going to be really, really learning curves about what's going to happen next.
And I love how you use the words layered operations, because I think that I've noticed that a lot of people, they will build checklists and systems and processes for the frontline staff. Like, here's how you open, here's how you make the sandwich, here's how you wash the dishes, here's how you talk to the guest. But they don't create that same level of operational structure for the AGMs and the GMs. And it's building those layers. It's okay, I'm not cooking the sandwich anymore. I'm hiring somebody to do that. 1 step back. Now I'm managing these people. Now I'm going to create the process for what that job done right looks like. I'm going to take another step back. So you're constantly creating these layers of removing yourself from the work.
Now someone else is working with the GMs. Someone else is getting the package ready for the CPA to finalize this period's financial statement. Things you used to do, other people are doing.
Right. So layered operations, locked-in strategy. You've been doing this with 3 units. You kind of know what works best, and now you're cementing it.
Exactly.
What does cementing it look
like? So now, when the real estate broker comes to you with these great locations, you immediately know this is going to work. That's not going to work. Right? When you have to choose the people that are going to join your organization to represent the culture, this is going to work. That's not going to work. When you sit down with chef and you decide what the new menu items are going to be, you understand whether they fit in to this brand or not. So you have more to fall back on at this point. And it's not, when locked in implies you're never going to change it. Well, you're going to adapt it. Conditions are going to change in the market. But you pretty much know what you stand for, and it's a lot easier to make decisions, and there's a lot less needing to sleep on it, hem and haw, should we do this, should we not do this, because we know who we are.
Okay. What do you mean by permeated culture?
Permeated culture. Okay, culture, intentional culture is, Eric, let me sit down and explain what this place is about in a way that is you haven't necessarily heard 50 times. Okay? Permeated culture is, let me bring in the server, the young lady that brought us our water and our tea before we started, and let's ask her what this company is about and what this brand is about, and we're going to know that we're going to hear the correct answer, the accurate answer, and we're going to even be able to hear what she did that day to uphold it. Now it's permeated. Now everyone's living it every day, and I have systems to inculcate culture, permeate culture, and measure culture, because it's great having a culture, What's not great is my poster on the drink station concept. What is great is when we're living it every day and I can stop anybody in my restaurant and say, what is your story today about how you represented our culture?
Yeah. A great book out there. It's My Company Too, Tom Walter. Have you heard it?
No, I haven't.
Great. But it's all about creating this entangled organization
Nice.
to create what you're talking about right here. I like to call it recreating yourself and others. So like your business is an extension of your values, your integrity, or whatever that is. And then the next step is to lift people up, to share your values, to attract onto yourself people that are like you, and to lift people up so that they are now treating it like you are treating it, like they own it.
Nice. And we didn't have employees applying for jobs asking about our values 15 years ago.
That's what the pay was.
But we do now. And I'm gonna come back on that too later.
Yeah. So we're still in the 4 to 9, chill out and reflect. We've covered some of the factors here: layered operations, locked in strategy, permeated culture. And what about amplified branding?
So amplified branding, it's the corollary to the culture. We talked about starting with the branding. Amplified branding is now by 4 to 9, you know how to put that message out into the world in an effective way. So you can communicate a message in a way that truly represents you, that your guests want to hear, that your prospective guests want to hear, and that weaves through everything you do. And restaurateurs at this stage, especially new restaurateurs, not all of them, I talked to earlier about the client I work with who's really great at marketing and branding. Most people don't understand marketing and branding. They think marketing is if I pull this lever, then I'll have X number of people walk in the door tonight. That's the old restaurateur thing. Well, it didn't work, right? But you learn that branding is a constant message. It is a 7-day a week, 4 week a month, 12 months out of the year message that goes out, and it makes people interested in your restaurant. It creates an awareness, and then it creates an interest in maybe I'll go there. And then the good thing happens. They actually attend, and hopefully they like the experience enough that they come back. It's slow. You can't really necessarily see it. And you have to have that message correct in your brand to maximize your sales. Extremely important now in a world where people are very picky about what restaurants they spend their money in.
Yeah, you're making me think it's similar to culture, branding and culture, right? Where people will learn, I need to write my vision and my mission and my core values and put it in an operations and tell my employees what it is. And then, why isn't it working?
Right.
It's not what you write in the book. It's what you do every day. And branding is the same thing. It's like, what is your strategy for marketing? And are you doing it every day? Because you can't just go through the motions. You have to constantly be beating on the drum. And over time, that starts to that's when it catches traction.
Right. Nobody woke up in the morning and said, I wonder how Eric's restaurant is. That's not the first thing anybody thinks of first thing in the morning. And we all laugh because we work with restaurants that are open for 10, 20, 30 years, and somebody walks by and says, how long have you been here? Right? And to us, it's the center of our world. And to the general public, they've got a lot of things on their mind.
Right.
So it takes a lot of creativity, time, and determination and intentionality to entice that person to stop what they're doing and go, I am considering eating there, right? And we all know everything we can do now to make our guests our ambassadors. But it comes as a result of the branding and the amplification of that branding that they feel when they're in the dining room.
Got it. So up to this point, we've covered 1 to 3, 4 to 9. We're about to go to 10 to 20.
Right.
But it seems like through the conversation we've been having, we've been focusing on single concept brands.
Right.
So scaling one idea, one concept. What about multi-concept operations?
So
the same rules apply. Are there some overlap?
There's some overlap. I mean, obviously, it's easier to do. It's easier to do one concept. It's much easier to do it with one concept. But that doesn't mean that's what you like.
Right.
You've got a new concept. You want to birth it. It does make your life more complicated.
Yeah.
So I work with a chef. He has 2 great concepts, and he says, I got a third. Now, was I really going, wow, that's great. What we need around here is a third concept. No, it makes it a lot more complicated, but I also understand, once again, what you and I have been talking about. It's really important to him. He wants to do this. Once you tell them this is going to make your life harder, more complicated, well, then it's up to them.
Yeah. You're making me think of, out of Columbus, Ohio. Why can I think? Cameron Mitchell, where he said our restaurants are exactly the same in the sense of our culture is the same, our systems and our processes are the same. Every new concept is just the same. It's the same chassis. It's the same engine pieces. It's a new outer shell.
Right.
It's just the branding's different. And I'm also thinking of Strategic Hospitality out of Nashville, Tennessee, Max and Ben Goldberg. And they specialize in same thing, same culture,
right?
Permeates throughout the entire organization, but their strategy is operations, i.e. HR, marketing, technology, finance, and then they find talented chefs and they say, what's your vision? What do you want to do? And then they build a brand around that person, but then they provide so there's still a strategy there,
right?
But there's just a different approach,
right?
So like there are similarities, but back to what I was saying, like there is no one way,
right? I mean, I have clients with so many concepts. Sometimes I think, is there another one? I'm going, we have that? I didn't know about that. Because maybe I work on 5 of the 6 concepts, right? And I have clients where we're doing this one thing and we're doing it over and over and over again, period. That's what we do.
How many times I've sat down with restaurant owners, I'm like, take me through chronologically the restaurants you've opened and closed. And they're like,
yeah.
And they're like, I can't remember, man.
Right.
And it's just, but there are no two people who are exactly the same. Some people love the development of brands and
right.
That's what they love and they're good at it. And they can create their ability to roll that out and create opportunity for other people who want to be the operators.
So here's the thing. If you are really inspired to do multi-concept, my suggestion is if you want to do it slightly easier, make sure there's similar guest profile.
Yeah. Because you know how to serve that. You don't have to know.
Move your guests from one of your concepts to another. Don't go all over the map in terms of who your guest is. It's going to be a lot easier to focus. But once again, always be yourself. If you have a high-end restaurant and you're dying to do a burger joint, I'm not going to stop your dream.
Yeah. You know who I love are the people who have such diverse portfolios. Have you heard of Social Order? And do you ever make it up to Oklahoma City?
I used to have a client in Oklahoma City, but I haven't been up there in a while.
Have you ever heard of the Jones Assembly?
Vaguely, yeah.
So Brian Bogert owns the Jones Assembly. It's a part of the Social Order Hospitality Group. They started with a franchise.
Right.
The Philadelphia.
Yeah. Started here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He went to school here and he brought it up to Oklahoma.
Right.
And then they got into the Fuzzy Tacos franchise.
Okay.
And then they started doing one-off concepts, 747, the Jones Assembly. So, and then now they're also investing in franchise. So they do a little bit of everything.
Right.
And to me, it's just, I don't know if that's like crazy or smart. They seem to be successful.
You got to know your motivation. I mean, and listen, everything I said, I always reserve my right to change it later.
Yeah.
And I have a client, we just built a second concept that has nothing to do with the original concept because we had to protect our parking. There was a building on the other side of our parking lot. We had the opportunity to get it. So we had to figure out what was going to go in that building.
Right.
So there's not a hard and fast rule. All I can tell you as a restaurateur that wants to grow their business is this way will be harder, this way will be easier. I will help you with whichever way you choose.
Yeah.
But it's your choice. It's not my choice.
Well, I think the benefit of doing a multi concept portfolio where you're doing one-offs, but you also have franchises, is that you have cash cows.
Right.
So you are putting your energy into buying into a franchise, and you can get those things going because they're giving you a playbook. Here's how you do it. Right. And then you can execute that playbook with your team, and then that can generate cash flow. And then you can use the profit from those restaurants to invest in your dream ideas, your concepts that might not be as profitable.
Right.
They might need 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. And I know people that have concepts that they're never going to make money, but they love them.
Right.
And they have other concepts to pay for them.
Yeah.
Right.
So
now, is that what I would do? Maybe not. But
yeah.
Once again, that's what they want to do.
Yeah. And
awesome.
I do think what you're saying is the most common of knowing your lane. Wow, I'm struggling today. Dialing it in, and it's more noisy today than it's ever been.
Right.
So to think that you can be good at all those things when you're better off at just kind of trying to carve out a niche and own it, your likelihood of success will be better for sure.
Great.
Yeah,
no question.
I agree with that. Anything else to cover from 4 to 9?
I think we've got the chill out and reflect step down, and if you get to that point, things are starting to get really good.
Yeah.
And if they're not getting really good, you got to really look at how you did it.
Right. Okay. 10 to 20.
10 to 20.
Is this venture capital time?
It may not be venture capital time.
Okay.
It may be, certainly by now, you have other financing opportunities. And what I tell my clients is once they get to that success rate, capital is not the issue. It's the ability to execute and build your units. There's lots of ways to raise restaurant capital. We can have a whole conversation about venture capital, private equity. Is that good? Is that bad? And we have that conversation every day in the business. It's right for some things. It's not right for other things.
That might be another conversation we can have someday.
I'm never concerned about finding capital to grow successful restaurants. That's the least of our worries. It's out there. Once you start getting 10 in the teens and heading for that 20 mark, a very interesting thing happens. First of all, a lot of times founders leave because, once again, that guy who was the waiter, the host, and the cook the first night may not have the skill set or the focus to scale past that time. I was hiring a operations director or vice president of operations, I can't remember, for one of my clients that had 20 units a few years ago. And I worked with their recruiter, and the recruiter said to me, the weird thing about this is the founder's still there. Usually when we get to this point, the founder's already gone. So you might be there, you might be not. And that's what should I stay or should I go is all about.
Right.
What's going to happen is, you talk about venture capital, let me connect that to when you get to be a certain size, if you're successful and that success is backed up in terms of what your restaurants look and feel like, the experience they provide for your guests, and your financials, you're going to start hearing people that want to either lend money to you or buy you.
Right.
Right? You don't have to do anything. You're just going to be picking up the phone, right? Or you're going to be getting LinkedIn messages every day. So it's almost like a report card, because should I stay or should I go it's a gut check. You're either going to be getting these inquiries whether you want them or not. So you're probably feeling pretty good about that.
Yeah.
Or you're not getting any inquiries and you want them. And that's a sign that something that you've created is not exactly right. Because the market is going to tell you. The market's going to give you your report card.
Right.
So you've got tons of opportunity. I'm not saying they're all going to be great opportunities, but they're opportunities. Or it's kind of crickets. So if you've got tons of opportunity, then you really have to decide what your life is going to be like. Am I going to stay and keep doing this?
Yeah. I think
Let me keep going.
Please.
And come back in.
Please.
If you don't have tons of opportunity, that's when you think, well, I got to relook at this, because by now people should be knocking on my door.
Right.
That is a sign that there's a flaw in something you've created.
Got it.
Branding, experience, P&L, whatever it is.
Where do you see people typically in flaw? What is it? What's the most common area?
I don't know that there is a common area. I'm going to have to think about that.
Yeah. You said something else that was really interesting, is that like you might have the right people for 4 to 9, but when you start going from 9 to 20, the operation is evolving and the people that got you to 9 might not be able to get you to 20 because of the skill set or...
Well, you're going to be adding more layers and more experienced people. And you're going to have to be able to communicate with more people and keep it real and keep that culture going. And it's a different job.
Makes me think of Gino Wickman from Traction,
right,
who writes about when you're growing and putting people into positions, they have to get it, want it, and have the capacity to do it.
Right.
So they have to understand the job. They have to want the job. They have to have a desire to move into that position, and they have to have a certain level of skill and talent, especially suited for the role that they're like. Not everybody can do it. But as they might get it, want it, and have the capacity to do it from 4 to 9, but as the industry, or as the business is evolving to the 10 to 20, those things are going to change, and they might no longer be suited for the responsibility. Danny Myers talks about this. I can't remember where I heard it, but I know it's from him. Is that when a tree is growing, it has to shed the bark and grow new bark.
Oh, nice.
The bark is the people. Like that bark that got the tree to 10 feet won't get it to 20 feet. You know, It has to create a new layer of bark. And that holds true to you to kind of come full circle. As you're scaling beyond going from 10 to 20, do you get it? Meaning, do you understand what you're signing up for?
Right.
Do you want it? Do you have the capacity to do it? And if the $20 million paycheck outweighs your capacity to get it, want it, and have the capacity, then maybe it's time to go, because you can retire and do whatever the fuck you want.
No, I have one guy said, when I get to this point, I'm leaving and you'll never hear from me again.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right. So going back to your question, I didn't have a fast answer for. If you're not getting the offers, that's a sign that your brand is not as unique as you think it is. Your guest experience is not as good as you think it is, and your P&L is not as sharp as you want it to be.
Yeah.
Something's not happens. Making you can still be making good money on that number of units, but it may not be exemplary kind of money.
Yeah. And I'll say this to reinforce what we were talking about before. I think we're talking from 4 to 9. If you want to get to that 20 point,
right?
Good luck selling a restaurant group with a bunch of different concepts, because venture capitalists and private equity are looking for something that they can take and just throw a little more gas on it, i.e. cash, and have it scale.
It's quick and have it scale quickly.
Yes.
Sell it to the next guy.
So if you want an end game and you want to be able to scale something in 10 years and sell it and retire at the age of 40 with $20 million in your high interest savings account, then maybe think about putting your energy into doing one thing really well.
It's a safer bet. I agree.
Right. Anything else from that 10 to 20 that we haven't talked about?
Well, I think the 10 to 20 is one of the topics that is really most important to me. Is what do you want your lifestyle to be like? You have a choice at this point. And people don't often give themselves the freedom they've earned. I've spent more time in my career telling people that work a lot to go home or go on vacation or get a hobby than I ever have saying, come on, get to work. You got to work more.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, if you got that far and you don't take advantage of that lifestyle choice, it's such a waste. So most people in the world that work jobs their whole life, they get their couple weeks vacation every year. And if they sat down with you and realized that you could create your life the way you want to and you weren't taking advantage of that, they would be shocked and possibly a little angry. So my message to people is, what do you want your life to be like? You do not have to work even 40 weeks a year. I've got a new client who's 40 years in and is working 60 hours a week. We're going to change that. So when you get to that point, even though you may be programmed to be really focused on working all the time, take the time to figure out what the choices are in your life.
It's really important that you got to figure out what you want. I think that's so you have, and no two people are exactly the same. I started hosting these 2-hour long, what I call evolve sessions. And the whole purpose, all I do in that 2 hours is I treat my I guess you'd call, I don't know, my listener, right? The person who reached out to me to block this 2 hours,
right?
To just hear who they are, how they got to where they are, where they want to go, what their values are, what matters to them. And then once I understand who they are, then I start making recommendations. And
Nice.
Have you thought about these different people or like this or that? Because there is no one solution for everyone, or because there's so many different destinations, I think you really, to our point, you really got to figure out what do you want? And then you reverse engineer the solutions.
Absolutely. Because when you have that kind of revenue, that kind of success, you can afford other people to do things that you're doing, and we want you to be doing only what is at your highest use, or only what you love. And you've got other things you want to do in life other than work.
Yeah,
that's what you did all this for.
So we haven't got. We're kind of talking about 20 plus now. Dig in.
Yeah, we're in there.
Yeah. So things to consider if you're generating outside interest, if you're not generating outside interest, and lifestyle, which we already covered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
So you said a couple things the last time we spoke that I wanted to bring to the surface today.
To do what I said.
So we were talking about some of the issues that we identified in 2018. The issue was that retail was going away, and it's having a huge impact on the restaurant industry. Like, in other words, there's more and more restaurants, less and less retail outlets in retail outlets. So how is this going to play out? You said in 7 years, it'll be interesting to see how this played out. So it's been 7 years.
It's been 7 years. And what the heck? You came back. There's a surprise. I don't think that's the main focus today. We have such a different situation today.
How did that play out, though? Can we look at it?
It just continued. We have a district here in Dallas that is a high-end restaurant district that is being developed rapidly. It's about 10 minutes from here. It's got some good retail in it, but restaurants, I think we've got 1,000 or 1,500 new restaurant seats coming in a 3-block radius in the next couple of years. That's a lot of food.
Yeah.
So it's only going to continue.
So what's interesting, and I'd love to hear your feedback on this. I've noticed that the way restaurants manifest in society today is way different than they were birthed into society.
Interesting.
So public house.
Right.
My listeners are like, oh, here he goes again. But like, if you wanted to start a town in the country of America,
right, in
the 18th century, the first thing you needed to do was, or I should say the 19th century, the 1800s, because I think it was 1776 when we got our independence.
I heard that.
You know, late 18th century, early 1900s. You had to establish a public house, which evolved into the pub. But if you look at if you ever travel like the East Coast,
right,
and you're seeing how those communities are laid out, there's a center to a town. You know, there's a church usually on that street. There's a restaurant on that street. There's Main Street. As you move further west, towards the end of the 19th century, and like going into like the mid 20th century,
right,
when these newer, or like even at the late 1900s, where a lot of these communities, look at Dallas, for example, were really starting to be developed. It was about marketplace centers. So it wasn't about community centers. It was about marketplaces and real estate and building these places of commerce, the strip malls. And that's where restaurants started to go, not in the center of towns. And then beyond that, you look at like the way that homes are built in the West,
right,
oceans of sprawling homes, thousands of homes, 20, 30 miles away from the city center. There's no more center, a place in the middle of a community to go and to have a drink and to talk to your neighbors. Why aren't we building restaurants there?
So the conversation has changed so much since the last time you and I did an episode, because the whole idea of playing off of retail, it's important, but it's so not important today. What's important today is motivating people to come into a restaurant in the first place. And we all know why. It's an economic factor after an inflationary period. So yes, the retail issue is still legitimate, but it's not really top of mind anymore. What's top of mind now is, how do you create an experience that's going to motivate someone to get into their closet, put their clothes on, go to your restaurant, and find value. Value not being money, value being how they feel at the end of it. Or even to motivate them to pick up their phones and order food through third-party delivery. Because of inflation and all the things we know, people's feelings about restaurants have changed. About 2 years ago, almost every one of my clients said to me, I ate in my restaurant last night and I can't believe how expensive it was. Or I picked up food to bring home to my kids out of my own restaurant, and I'm
never going back.
I couldn't believe what it cost, right? And that's when the warning lights started to go off. And of course, that's when guest count stopped going up, right? So we all know now, all the data shows us that people want to go to restaurants, that they're willing to spend for great experiences. They're not trading down so much. They're just going out less frequently. So all that talk that you and I had 7 years ago, and we thought, things were going to be that way forever, is out the window. And the game now is, how do you make the experience valuable enough so that people will come more often and tell their friends? Period.
Yeah.
That's it.
The Experience Economy is a phenomenal book.
Yeah.
It gets a lot into it. We are in the cool thing about the restaurant industry is that we are in the industry of so many different things, right? We are in the production industry.
Right.
We are producing a product. We are in the service industry because we're providing a service.
That's what makes it so hard.
And we're also in the experience industry.
And we're a dispensary and we're a retail operation, and now we're a delivery operation.
What up, unstoppable restaurant owners and operators? We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that Restaurant Unstoppable and Restaurant Systems Pro, we're taking our relationship to the next level. Beginning in July of 2024, Fred Langley, CEO of Restaurant Systems Pro, is making himself available once a week in Restaurant Unstoppable Network to answer all of your restaurant systems questions, whether it's the profit margins. He will look at your P&L. Bring your P&L. He will take a look at that. He will dissect it. He will help you find your profit, whether that be through budgeting, inventory management, costing and recipe cards, labor, checklists, you name it. He is a master of restaurant systems, and he's making himself available to you. Fred Langley and Restaurant Systems Pro started as a consulting firm, and for over 16 years, they've been helping their clients increase their profit by 10% or more. What are you waiting for? Click the link below to join our Facebook group, Restaurant Unstoppable Network.
But the future, they're saying, is the transformation economy. Right. To your point, like, you have to get somebody off their ass to come into your community. And I think if you look at where you can transform people, you can make them happier, healthier, or wealthier. I think of Kevin Boehm in Chicago, and they have that concept. It's escaping my mind. It's like a health. It's more of like a. It's more of a social club, right, than it is a restaurant. But they serve food there. But it's really around co-working space and community and wellness. And they serve tea, and there's like a level of like cafe experience to it. But really, what they're in is they're about creating community about helping you be like a better version of yourself. Nice. Right? So I think that's kind of like where am I going to go to find my center, to find my community? And I think that's how we make people happier, healthier, and wealthier, is by helping them connect with each other and then giving them that community to evolve.
Yeah. And do you remember when restaurants that food was kind of okay and they were packed? They're gone. That's over.
Right.
So what we work on now, what I work on with my clients is, let's update our menus. Let's go back to square one on what our service is like. Let's figure out how to send a message about who we are as people to connect to, because it's so clear that people want these experiences, and when they get them, they will pay. But if you don't have the experience to offer them, they're just not interested.
Yeah. Yeah. We also talked about the workforce challenges outside and collaborating with local businesses, solutions. So basically, the big challenge was the workforce and attracting onto yourself these people. And I think I offered to you that it seems like the consumer wants a better quality. Sourcing local is something we brought up. The cost of labor is going up. We can't really afford to have somebody making pasta and doing like charcuterie and like all this from scratch, high touch,
constant conversation.
Right. I think what I brought to you, what I was curious about was, do you think that we're going to see, to your point, do one thing really well, but instead of it being a restaurant, like seeing more like wholesale and retail pasta shops that are also like supplying locally?
I think that is a separate thing. I think in the end, the good thing about being in the restaurant business is something that you talked about earlier. People want to have that experience. They want to have that common experience. Yes, there's a greater appetite for high-end ingredients you can make at home. No question. Every city you go to, there's more markets. There's plenty of stuff online. Goldbelly now is bringing you restaurants from all around the country, including some of my clients. But that doesn't replace a great experience in a restaurant. It's just another thing that you do.
But so say I'm a chef, right? And I want to open my own place. My passion is pasta. Does it make sense to open a restaurant, or does it make sense to make pasta and then have clients who are restaurants that can support your business?
Well, that's a conversation a lot of chefs are having right now. And a lot of them are doing both, or they're not opening a restaurant. They're figuring out how they can do multiple restaurants because it's harder to live off of one. But if you're a restaurateur that has a vision and is going to hire a chef, you're still going to open a restaurant.
Right.
You're not going to start, a lot of people, I have clients that are very interested in retail and some of their items. I have people that have sauces and sausages, and it's kind of something they're playing with. I don't know that anybody's really nailed it yet, but it's a thing.
But you're pointing out that people want, the consumer wants quality. That's a trend.
Right.
Like we're the more,
as they define it,
more savvy than ever before. They know what good food is, right?
No question.
Cost of labor is going up.
Right.
Is that going up at a faster rate than cost of goods? That's an argument. Who knows?
Yeah, well, and especially today. We're recording this when the tariffs took place last night.
Right.
So all of our olive oil and our avocados and our tequila just changed drastically.
Right. But to your point, local is also more important than ever.
Yeah.
So like, I also think that if you're alive today, man, all you know is this world of abundance, and I can get avocados, I can get cocoa. I can get
fresh strawberries, 12
wooden shoes from Sweden. Like I can get like, is it Sweden those come from? Or I don't know. Over there, over the ocean.
Sure. Not my area of expertise.
The point is, like we are so disillusioned with how good we have it and how convenient the world is with globalization.
Right.
That we have gone away from what it means to actually support a local economy.
Absolutely.
So like, is it horrible that we can't get tequila and avocados? Is it going to force us to maybe fucking pickle some shit, you know, and have some food that comes from our land?
Right.
And like, we can plan ahead for the winter, you know? Is that inconvenient? Yeah. But is it going to be better for local economy if we choose to put our money locally? Like, I don't have the answers. Like, I'm not the economist, but like, we just are so disillusioned. You know, like I don't know. I like to play devil's advocate.
So let me bring this back to where we are today. The 3 most important things that you need to know are not on your P&L. What? What did he just say? Hey, I'm a P&L guy. I teach people how to make their P&Ls more usable and how to review them, and started out my first job as treasurer of a multi-unit organization. But we're in this interesting time where the 3 most important things are not on your P&L. Guest count, number 1. Because guest count is eroded because of inflation. A lot of operations are guest count negative. Some are standing still. A few are increasing. And you have to figure out how to be the ones that are increasing, right? And when you do P&L review, you can't find a guest count on there. But that's the biggest number you need to know. How many guests did we have this week in this restaurant versus how many guests we had last year in this restaurant, and why? Number 2 is something you talked about a minute ago with the workforce. And I think as an industry in the last couple of years, we've made great progress on that. And that is employee retention. It seems like it's stabilized a little bit in the last year.
Yeah.
Which is great.
I have a follow-up question, but keep going.
Okay. Because a lot of my clients, we really tracked employee retention last year more carefully. And by the time we got to the end of the year, it was actually looking better than we expected. And then number 3 is quality of experience. You said quality of food, that's part of it. To me, it's quality of experience, which is how you feel when you walk in the door, how you're greeted, the atmosphere, the uniqueness of the experience, and how you feel when you leave.
Can I distill that down to relationships?
Sure.
I think that's at the core. Yeah. Back to the world we came from, where like you'd go into your center town, like communal place, your place of congregation, right? Where you'd come together. And like that experience of knowing everybody there, that's the feeling that that's the most important feeling that humans want, is to be seen, to be loved, to have an opportunity for growth. And we need that. It's a part of our DNA.
Right.
I think we lost it for a good period of time.
So it feels good when you have that in a restaurant, is what you're saying. And consumer confidence is eroding a little. Disposable income at the middle and upper income levels most of my clients operate in is pretty good. And if you provide something that's unique and valuable, they're going to come and experience it. Yeah. If you provide something that's just okay, it's over.
Yeah. Yep. You said that there seems to be more employee retention. If we're playing what we did the last time I was here with you and we're talking about the future, I'm curious about AI and AI and its effect on the greater economy, right, in terms of other jobs in more blue collar and white collar administrative work going away. You're going to see a lot of that. What does that mean for the restaurant industry?
Well, I think we're on this roller coaster, the AI roller coaster. We're almost the same way we're on a technology roller coaster. You know, we go through a few months and it's going to change the world, and we go through another few months and it's not going to work at all. Yeah. And those of us that are really focused on restaurants every day and not AI are in the middle. It's like there's some cool tools out there that we're starting to see at the independent level that the chains have now. In terms of
the what have now?
The chains have now in terms of data analysis, scheduling.
The trains? I'm sorry.
The chains.
Chains.
The chains have now in terms of data analysis.
That's like next week from when the independents have it.
Because it is. It depends who you talk to. I mean, I've talked to people that say it is next week. It's sooner than you think.
I know independents that are creating their own in-house automated answering services.
I mean, I know a guy in Brooklyn that has his own answering company that is $2.99 a month. that you'll never have to answer your phone again in your restaurant.
My hope for AI is that it levels the technological playing field,
Right.
and it spreads out the wealth among the companies that control the technology. Because whoever controls the technology controls the power, controls the narrative. And I think you're seeing it right now with some of the top dogs in the world of POSs and enterprise solutions. One name probably comes to mind, top dog POS. Which one is it?
Well, the dominant player in the market is Toast.
Enterprise solution.
Right.
Which one is it?
365.
Right. That's a fucking problem, dude.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you. And it's
And
not
nothing against
and it's
them.
not permanent.
Nothing against them. I
Right.
think it goes back. I think before we hit record, we're
Right.
talking about we live in this world where we are hardwired to go with number one. But because that's just the world, like we would ask our neighbor, where'd you get that?
Right.
Oh, I'm going to go get it.
Right.
But now this world of centralized media where if you have the technology, you have the money to have the power to control the agenda, you can become number one globally. And that means the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. And that's not good for the restaurant industry either, because if that one company decides to up the rates on credit card processing, we're fucked and we can't do shit about it.
You have to question the wisdom of being tied into your credit card processing based on your POS.
Right.
choice.
But like when
And I can say that over and over and over again. It doesn't seem to influence a lot of people.
I want to be clear. I don't think Toast is an evil company, but if we don't get ahead of letting certain companies get too big, then we're down the line. Absolute power corrupts absolutely historically. I'm not saying they're there yet. I'm saying if we continue down this path.
I agree. There's a risk.
So I think why AI is exciting is because it's going to level the playing field among the technologists to make it so we can go back to sourcing local technological solutions, and we can fragment these companies. That's my hope. That's the awareness I want to create for a better future in the restaurant industry.
So I think that's a great aspiration. And when you look at things over time, things that are never going to change have a habit of changing. Even what you and I were talking about 7 years ago, compared to what we're talking about today, there are vast changes in our industry. And it's a little hard to see them when you're in the middle of them. So if we come back in the future, the dominance of Toast and 365, not to put a judgment on either one of those products.
They're doing a great job, and that's why they got to where they are.
Could look different.
Right.
Could look a lot different.
But I think also, back to AI, I think you're going to see a lot of these other industries are going to eliminate a lot of jobs, and I think that the restaurant industry is going to be sitting pretty for opportunity
because we'll have more people.
Right. I think the future looks very good for the restaurant industry because more and more people are going to be forced back to it, and as long as you've looked at humanity,
right.
Food has been at the centerpiece of our transformation. From when we figured out how to use fire to agriculture to it has literally been, we've hinged on food and our relationship with it. And if you think the future is any different from the past, you are short-sighted in my personal opinion.
So, when we were having real labor shortages, we had this conversation. Which would you like? Would you like a good economy and a labor shortage, or a not so good economy and all the employees you want? Well, every one of us would take a better economy.
Right.
So we're going to see as things evolve. We're going to continue to evolve in terms of what experiences people want to have in their homes, in their pajamas and their slippers, sitting on their sofa, eating your food that they just put in the microwave. Yeah, they put it in the microwave. I'm sorry. They're just going to put it in the microwave. I give up, right? And how many experiences they want to have.
Just don't put your pizza in the microwave. Get a cast iron, for God's sake, and warm it up.
Right, and experiences people want to have in rooms like we're sitting in. It's unpredictable. We don't know.
One more thing I want to get your take on. You know what? We're in Texas. You know what I love about Texas?
Tell me.
Politically, people do not care. They will say what they think.
Okay, good.
I think I'm very moderate. I like to think that I see both sides, but I would like to have more political conversations for my own good so I can understand how the current policies, the current political environment that we're in, how that trickles down to the restaurant industry.
Okay.
So do you have political opinions?
I have political opinions.
Are you willing to go on record and talk about your opinions?
I am willing to go on and talk about my
So
opinions.
what's happening in the world today that we should be aware of?
That's kind of a wide open question.
Well, tariffs, right?
Yeah.
What are the most important things that, in terms of like voting, how should we vote? Awesome.
So I'm not going to tell you how to vote, but I'm going to tell you the thing about Texas. Texas, because of the way the Texas government is set up, it is we're in a red state, but the cities that we operate in
Blue.
are blue.
That's how every state
right?
is. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not exactly what you think it is. There are plenty of open-minded people here that can see both sides, and there are people on both sides. It's really closer than it looks. But in a winner-take-all system, a small majority can do a lot that is out of proportion to the people that it represents. And that's, not to go all global on you, but that's happening everywhere. And how that pans out, we don't know.
Right.
Right. And then, what's good for the industry is not always good for the people. So that's another deep, deep dive topic that can go in a lot of different directions.
Well, give me an example of what's good for the industry isn't good for the people.
So you have two lives. You have your professional life, right, where you're going to build something, achieve wealth, security for your family, help people. And you have your personal life where you may have a totally different agenda of things you want to do. And there's legislation that comes up that helps an industry that might not always help you in your personal life. And we live in a system where every industry is lobbying. It's not just the Restaurant Association that's lobbying. Every industry is lobbying for things that benefit the industry. That's the system that's been created. Whether that's always the best thing for you as an individual when you get outside of your work is not a necessarily continuum. And that causes, on both ends of the scale, and that causes a lot of,
what are the ends on this scale?
What are the, I don't
Works
know.
in life?
I don't know. I'm just looking at the two aspects. Do you watch Severance?
No.
Okay, first of all, you got to watch Severance. Because Severance talks about splitting your home life from your work life. It talks about a lot of things.
Right.
But if you know about the premise of Severance, they put a chip in your head, and when you're at work, you have no...
Shut it off. You can leave the monkey on the tree on the way.
You don't know who you are. You know you're somebody,
Yeah.
but you don't know who, right?
Exactly.
And then when you're home, you're not worrying about reading tomorrow's Yelp reviews because you don't know what you do at work,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's representative of this distinction between what's politically good for us as professionals and what's politically good for us in whatever side of the argument that we undertake. So it's complex.
Yeah, it is. That's the most true thing out of everything that's been said today is that we live in a very complex system.
Yeah. And
I think we're generally hardwired to be white or black. And it's easier today to get caught into an echo chamber of what people are, we surround our birds of the same feather flock together. And that is magnified and amplified online. And I think it's really important that it's very complicated. We are all more alike than we are different. And it's really important to hear different perspective so you can find a balance.
Right. I mean, look at no tax on tips. Okay.
Where do you fall on that?
We don't know if it's going to be in the budget or not. We had two opposing presidential candidates in favor of it, right? Which they weren't in favor of a lot of things.
Right.
And in my opinion, it is a terrible thing for the restaurant
I kind of
business.
agree with that one. Why though?
And it may happen because, it's day one of no tax on tips. Awesome. Who's the first person that's going to stop me when I come in the building in the morning? The cooks.
Right.
Because now these people who are already making more money than I'm making,
Are making even more.
they're not even paying tax anymore, so I need a raise.
Right.
What's my answer? I don't have an answer.
That one seems pretty obvious.
Okay, and then my guest comes in that I love, and 95% of my guests are paying taxes on 100% of their income, and they figure out that the server is not paying tax. Okay, how do they feel? Not so good. What do they do with their tips? They reduce them.
Right. So you end up losing either way, or you
In my
end up
opinion,
losing.
it is not a good thing for the industry.
I think you're right. What about just tipping in general? If there,
Wow. That's, every time you throw something at me, I'm like, well, that would be a good hour.
right?
Yeah.
That's a weird argument for me. I kind of feel like we are very unique in this country.
We are.
We're the only ones who do this. Why?
Yeah.
We're so
And
short-sighted.
I was in Miami and Fort Lauderdale a week ago. Service charges because there's so many people from around the world that don't tip.
Right.
But here's the thing. Something about the industry, you talked about the public house. Where did this stuff come from? Okay. How did it come that such a large majority of our employees are compensated by our customer not by us. Where did that come from? How is it that I can mark up a cocktail 500%, but I can only mark up a steak 300%? Who made these rules?
Well, I mean, it's crazy. I tend to lean in the favor of, if there's any legislation, we should just ban tipping.
Right.
And there shouldn't be a service charge. There should just be a charge to cover your cost of labor. And that doesn't need to be on a fucking bill. That is what it costs to produce the service and the experience that we deliver. You don't need to know about it. And if the thing is, if you at a state level and a national level, if you just ban tipping, then everyone's forced to do it.
Right.
You're still going to be paying the 20% that you've always been theoretically should have been paying. And people will squawk for like 2 months, and then some crazy celebrity will get divorced and they'll forget about it. You know, like the new pop culture thing will distract them. It will be a painful thing for like a very short period of time until people in their habits in the culture just change. Culture can change exponentially. People, evolution, you know, biology doesn't happen overnight, but culture does. It wouldn't be that painful.
So I think that's interesting. The hard part about the tip issue is the government has a hard time differentiating within the tip community, right? I know servers that make 6 figures, right? And I know servers that just get by, depending on where they choose to work. And you could argue that it would be a positive thing for the people at the low end of the scale to have some kind of benefit because they don't make a whole lot of money.
Right.
But if it's even possible for a government entity to make distinctions between that without then people, you know, trying to manipulate whatever the regulations are, it's really hard.
And that's where
it's like the tip credit, okay? The tip credit is probably going to go away.
I hope so.
Right? But the tip credit, because it's hard to explain, not because it's not right or not.
But you know what would fix the tip credit?
It's hard to explain.
Just eliminate tipping. You know, like
that's a push. That's a big push, Eric.
It's the big pushback on eliminating tipping is my customers will stop coming in because they can't afford to eat here if I do that, and I won't be able to find talented work because they survive on tips. And I get that side of it too. So like again, I'm usually very like I see both sides of it,
right?
But I think that if you are a fine dining restaurant, really only the top 5% of people can afford to go to you. And you will price yourself accordingly so you can attract onto yourself the talent to pay them 6 figures. And, you know, the people who are technicians when it comes to serving, like craftspeople, like the best servers in the world can go make 6 figures. And the 5% of the population that can afford to eat there will support them. And the majority of restaurants will be in the middle, casual to QSR to fast casual. And the price will be a lot lower where the majority of the population can afford to support those. It will all eventually even out.
So I don't know about that because
I would love to.
At the high end, there's a proportion of the guests at the high end are not the top 5%. They are the aspirational guest that goes twice a year.
Okay.
And there's lots of them.
And they'll still be able to do that.
And the mid-range, well, what is the mid-range?
So the 80-20 rule, 20% of your guests are responsible for 80% of your revenue. So it doesn't mean that the other 80% of your guests won't go to your restaurant ever, but they'll still just make up a smaller percentage of your market. So like you'll still figure it out. And maybe there's way too many luxury restaurants out there. Maybe we need to be a little more modest. Instead of chasing James Beard and Michelin stars, maybe we should chase consumer satisfaction. Like, where are our priorities?
Well, you know, that's somewhat market driven and somewhat aspirational driven.
We can talk in circles.
If I could wave a magic wand,
I don't have the answers, man.
It would be able to differentiate. If the tip issue, I would want to differentiate the servers that really are choosing to work in places where they're not going to make a lot of money. They're just not.
Right.
With people that are. I don't know that we have the capability to do that.
I mean, I feel like I don't even know if like a minimum wage thing is necessary at that point either. Because if you're not paying your people in the world of glass doors,
right,
and monsters.com, and the internet has made the world a very transparent place. If you're treating your people like shit today, you're not going to stay in business, or you're going to be the first people to hire the robots, which will be another option.
Right. Well, it's interesting that the minimum wage conversation has kind of gone away. Even though I am a proponent of having a higher minimum wage just from an ethical standpoint.
Right. I agree.
That the whole thing's gone because we've blown past it anyway.
Right.
You don't have to fight for 15 because we're at 15 plus.
Yeah. I don't have the answers, but I want to have more conversations like this so I can hear perspective. And I think it's important that the industry hears perspective too.
It's so interesting how different things evolve in different places around the world. For when you've traveled and you travel to other country, in this case, where there's a service charge on every restaurant bill, where there's professional.
We're the weirdos.
We're the weirdos. You know, the metric system, and they have professional class of servers that have lived under that system their whole lives. Changing it is the hard part.
Yeah.
Changing it is hard.
Matt, this has been a lot of fun, man.
I've enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to connect with you. Who do you respect and admire?
So I want to tell you about something you and I emailed about last week that I think is kind of cool, and it may be worth some focus in your journey. Last weekend, we had the Texas ProStart Invitational down in Waco. And for those of you in the audience that don't know about ProStart is the National Restaurant Association Foundation's high school culinary and management program, which is pretty remarkable. It's a workforce-oriented program. Here in Texas, of course, it's Texas, so we have the largest number of high school students in any state in culinary and management programs. And so let's just say it's the biggest one in the world in that case, because we're in Texas. So I judge the management part of this competition along with some of my peers, and these groups of high school students create a restaurant concept, and they have to defend it almost like a Shark Tank. So that our one school goes to nationals in Baltimore. And you talked about community earlier. And I've been doing this probably for 15 years and have watched these students change because these are high school kids. You know, you talk about generational change. This is the next generation. They're not even here yet. And one of my questions to them was, what is the core piece of your restaurant concept on which everything else is dependent on success? And every team talked about community and representing their personal culture. Community, connecting people. Nobody talked about marketing, service, branding. That's okay. They're high school students. And I could see those kids change. And one of my fellow judges, and said, we open these restaurants to make money. And they looked at him like, who are you and how did you get in here?
Devil.
So that was inspiring to me. And I would love to find a way, if it's part of your journey, to talk to some of these people, because we've already seen a huge change in values-based decisions amongst our workforce and values-based decisions amongst our guests. And boy, it's coming bigger than ever.
And that's the future. And when we say these people, are you talking about the students?
These are high school students.
That'd be interesting. Hey, let's set it up.
Yeah,
we'll do a panel.
We can figure out how to get some of those top competing students in.
That'd be really
because they are all about community and connection.
I would love their names if you want to put Let me
go back through Texas Restaurant Foundation.
Yeah,
and see if we can connect you with some.
Maybe if I'm not here in the next couple of days, we can do like a digital panel and give them a platform to share their perspective.
That would be cool.
That would be really cool.
Yeah.
And what about any restaurant tours that are currently killing it that I should be aware of?
You've got covered Texas pretty well, and we've talked about that, and I've given you some names, but I'm going to have to come up with some more.
Yeah, I know you mentioned, now I'm blowing, Aaron Lyons.
You're going to see my client Aaron Lyons at Dish Society in Houston.
Yep, I'm going to be connecting with him. There's some other people that we'll talk off air, but I'm going to get Aaron. That's already happened. It's already on the schedule.
Good.
And I can't do what I do without people like you. You make my work possible. Thank you for making time for me.
It's fun to do this again.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
We have a lot more. We're never going to run out of content.
Yeah.
We never even got to retire in place. That's a future deal.
Calls to action.
Yeah.
What are the calls to action? You offer your services. You have a book out there now. I think you were talking about your book. Did that ever get published?
No, we went a different direction on that. There's pieces of it out there. So calls to action are, if you're interested in hearing more, there's tons of content on my website, surrender.biz, B-I-Z. And when you get to my website, you've got the option of subscribing to my newsletter. You've got the option of hitting a button to set up a call with me just to meet me. And, I have all kinds of ways of getting to where you want to go, from my Restaurant Owner Success Club, through standalone strategy, through consulting, through coaching, through advisory work. And I would love to just talk to you if you're out there and just want to tell me what's going on in your company and give you some complimentary advice on an initial call. All you got to do is click on a button on my website. And there's tons of content on there. There's video, there's audio, there's archive of all my newsletters. And there's also, if you want to get the poster version of the Game of Restaurant Growth that we've been talking about through most of this time today, reach me through my website, and we will send you the poster for your wall that will show you all these steps on the game board to 20 units. And there's a QR code on that poster, and when you hit it, you get a download of an ebook that recaps in a lot more detail some of these things, Eric, that you and I have been talking about today.
Yeah, and I think what would be a fun conversation for the future is private equity and or venture capital, raising money. Should I not? What the options are. That was something that came up. That would be really cool.
It's changing. I think a lot of it's changing in people's minds, and that is because their desire to control their own destiny is changing.
Yeah. Do you have an ideal client in terms of where they are in their evolution?
So I don't have an ideal client in terms of where they are in an evolution, but I have an ideal client in terms of who they are.
Who are they?
And that is success. My job is to make successful people more successful, and a willingness to share vulnerability and be open and honest about what they see their greatness is and where they want to go and where their challenges are.
Awesome. You hit out with your email or your website?
Yep. There's the info on my website. And there's also a Let's Chat button that'll get you on my calendar for a 15-minute Zoom.
Social handles, you want to throw those out there?
So yeah, I wish I knew them by heart. That's not good, is it?
We'll be back again, that's for sure. This has been a lot of fun, and there is no questioning, my man. You are unstoppable.
Thank you.
Cheers.